Chocolate and chilli are a great combination. Today I'm going to make chocolate volcanoes, rich chocolate puddings with a little spike of chilli in there. So the first step is to take some butter and just melt it gently in a saucepan. I've got 120 grams, so I just want to melt that on a pretty gentle heat really. Don't want it to clarify. And the reason that we want to heat that up and melt it is that heat is going to melt our chocolate. So now I'm going to add my chocolate in here, and I've got around about 125 grams dark bitter chocolate. Throw it into your butter. No need for one of those double boiler situations if you're doing it like this. The butter's got enough fat content, it's not going to shock the chocolate, and it's just going to melt down. So I can just turn that off now that that has come up to heat. And then all I need to do is let that sit, cover it with a tea towel, and that chocolate will start to melt with the heat of the butter, and then it'll be ready for us to whisk into our next mixture. Next thing I need to do is whip up some eggs and some sugar. So I'm taking 3 eggs, and we're using caster sugar for this recipe, and around about half a cup. So throw this in. Grab a whisk, none of this electric beater business, do a bit of exercise for a change. We're going to be eating these chocolate puddings and they are not very light on the calories. I love doing this, it really makes you feel your age. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to whip a whole lot of air into my eggs, if you like. So I'm trying to aerate those because this recipe has no raising agents whatsoever in it. So the only way that these are going to puff up in the oven is with the air that I choose to whip into them now. And I think that we can sometimes think it's never going to get there, but all of a sudden it starts to look creamy and beautiful, and that's really what we're after. So hang in. Woo! Great, I'm happy with that. You can see it's really changed its form. It's now looking foamy as opposed to those large bubbles on the top. Check my chocolate out and see if that's melted now with the butter. Yeah, that looks good. Now imagine if we'd set up a whole double boiler thing, water in one pot, chocolate in another, all of that just so that it doesn't burn. It's crazy. Pretty much the last stage is mixing these two little mixtures together. So just pouring our chocolate into our egg mixture. It's cooled down enough that it's not going to cook the eggs or do anything disastrous. Now this is when I can spike it with a little bit of chilli. Don't go overboard on the chilli, it's just a little pinch of it, but it'll really give it a little bit of a lift. Tablespoon of regular flour, and then just a gentle fold really of these two together. And the reason why I want to gently fold it is I've just spent all of that time whipping air into it, and if I over mix it I'm going to take out some of that air, and that's not what I'm after. So that chocolate and that chili combination, two great ingredients from Mexico. The cacao coming from there, different types of chilies growing everywhere, really typical ingredients in Mexican cuisine. Making sure all of that flour has dissolved. If you add a little bit of salt, it just brings up that bitterness of the chocolate, which is sort of what we're looking for. That's fantastic. So I'm going to stop stirring that now so that it's still got that volume in there, and I can prepare my ramekins. And by cooking these as little individual portions, they're going to puff up slightly in the oven, they'll be cracked on the surface, and in the middle will be this gooey, smooth, chocolatey, molten sauce for us to enjoy. And now just a little dusting of flour in each one of these as well. By flouring the sides a little bit, it does help them to sort of rise up away from the edge of your container, like a real volcano. Just make sure that you tap out any excess flour, because nobody likes that at the bottom of their little gooey pudding. All right, we're ready to pour into these ramekins. You can see the consistency here, a nice thick sauce, aerated. You can afford to fill these up nearly to the top because they won't rise a whole lot. This is nearly my favourite part of the whole process, superseded only by the eating. And I am going to recommend that if you haven't been quite perfect at some stage and you've got a few little dribbles, just clean those up. It's a lot easier to do this now rather than when your guests are looking at you expectantly. They're ready for the oven. I've got my oven preheated at about 180 degrees. Those need about 15 or 20 minutes. They're done when they're cracked on the surface, slightly risen and firm around the edges. I think those puddings should be ready now. Oh, they look fantastic. You see how they are kind of cracked on the surface, but you can still see some of the gooeynesses coming through. Oh. Now these are best served really warm. I'm going to serve mine with a little bit of tinned guava. Nothing wrong with a bit of tinned fruit if you choose the right one, and I love a guava because they're so pretty. All right, let's try. Oh, you just break through that crust and into the gooey centre. It's heaven in a little spoonful.